Social Warfare, Honorable E. Moyo. I'm made to understand that he is represented maybe by his deputy. This meeting is being held on a Tuesday. Usually we are supposed to be in cabinet, but I'm excused because I lost my father-in-law, whom we are burying tomorrow in Mutare, and I've been excused from cabinet because I felt that this is very, very important to the ministry. I had to present my speech before I traveled back to Mutare. I just arrived this morning and I'm going back. But bear with us that my colleagues are in cabinet, but they are so represented. Let me also acknowledge the ministers of state who are in our midst. If they are not here yet, maybe their representatives. I want also to acknowledge the presence of the European Union Ambassador, His Excellency J. von Kichman. Also in the presence of Your Excellency, the heads of missions accredited to Harare, here present, Chief Secretary in the Office of the President and Cabinet, who is also represented. I don't know who is representing him, but we want to welcome you to this very important meeting. The Chairman of the Public Service Commission, Dr. V. Bungwe, Permanent Secretaries for Defense, Comrade A.D.T. Nepera, the Secretary for the Ministry of Public Service, Labor and Social Welfare, Mr. S. Masanga, and other permanent secretaries that are here present. The Commander of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, General P.V. Sibanda, Service Chiefs who are here, the Director of the Implementation Support Unit of the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Convention, Mr. Juan Carlos, Zimbabwe Mine Action Program managers, members of the media, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm deeply honored to welcome you all to this three-day second edition of the National Stakeholders Dialogue on Humanitarian Demining and Mine Victim Assistance in Zimbabwe, that is being held here in Harare, organized jointly by the Ministry of Defense and also the Ministry of Public Service. To those who are coming from outside Harare, it is my hope that you traveled safely and that you were well received and are ready for the task ahead. Feel free to explore the many tourist attractions that the capital city and the country at large have to offer. The dialogue is part of Zimbabwe's efforts to mobilize enough resources for her mine action program in pursuit of the quest for a mine-free Zimbabwe and by extension the entire world. The dialogue seeks to galvanize our traditional partners and all other stakeholders towards the realization of this noble cause. This meeting is taking place after a very successful conference on the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Treaty, which was held in Cambodia, where we held a very successful meeting, and I had the honor to interact with most of you, and I really appreciated that you availed time. And this meeting is therefore taking place at the backdrop of that interaction that we held in Cambodia. The first day of our program has already been briefed by Mr. Chilowa, will be devoted to discuss mine clearance, while the remaining 2 will focus on mine victim assistance. To add value to our discussion and share experiences, participants to the dialogue are drawn from all walks of life across the globe. We have in our midst representatives from various government ministries, departments and agencies, the donor community, traditional leaders from affected communities, parliamentarians, and most importantly, survivors of mine accidents. Ladies and gentlemen, this dialogue workshop is yet another reminder of Zimbabwe's commitment to the aims and objectives of the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Convention that yearns for a world free of landmines. To achieve this, there is need for concerted efforts from all stakeholders, including the donor community. There is also need to engage the affected communities, bilateral and multilateral cooperation, and most importantly, unwavering commitment by all state parties to the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Convention. It is disconcerting, ladies and gentlemen, that despite the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Convention coming into force 25 years ago, there are many people around the world who are still living in fear of becoming landmine victims. Many have lost their lives and others have been maimed as a result of landmine accidents. At this juncture, may I kindly request all of us to rise and observe a minute of silence in honor of men, women, and children who lost their lives to landmines. Thank you. You may be seated. In Zimbabwe, minefields were planted by the Rhodesian colonial forces at the height of the armed struggle for independence in the 1970s, with a view to inhibit the movement of freedom fighters to and fro the neighboring countries of Zambia and Mozambique. The minefields transcended 6 provinces of Zimbabwe that include Matabeleland North, Mashonaland West, Mashonaland Central, Mashonaland East, Manicaland and Masvingo, covering an area of 300,650 square kilometers. And since independence, significant progress has been registered towards making Zimbabwe a mine-free zone. To date, all except 12,000 square kilometers of the mine-infested area has been cleared and handed over to communities for economic exploitation. This represents 4% of the total minefields inherited at independence, a phenomenal achievement indeed, notwithstanding erratic and inadequate funding. The Zimbabwe National Army's National Mine Clearance Unit has completed the main minefield in Victoria Falls, Matabeleland North, up to Mulibizi, leaving a small portion at Lusulu. In Mashonaland West, the minefield around the Kariba Power Station was again cleared by the National Mine Clearance Unit, thereby making the province mine-free. In Mashonaland Central, demining in Mount Darwin district was completed by the Hallow Trust. Mine clearance is nearing completion in Rushinga district, giving hope that the province will soon be mine-free. Similarly, Manicaland province is now mine-free following completion of mine clearance in the 4 districts of Chipinge, Mutasa, Mutare Urban, and Mutare Rural. The Norwegian People's Aid was working in this province and post-clearance control through quality control, which was done by 15 December 2024. A takeover ceremony of the cleared land will take place in April this year, 2025. Significant progress has also been registered in Masvingo province, where the entire 53 kilometers primary mine field was completed by the Zimbabwe Army's National Mine Clearance Unit. Currently, the unit and APOPO are working on the secondary mine field in the province. Mashonaland East, where the Mine Advisory Group and the Norwegian People's Aid are operating, remains one of the most affected provinces. More operators will be deployed to this province as soon as they complete the mining in the areas they are currently working on. Our projection was to complete demining by December 2025. This is no longer realistic due to challenges associated with the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic and fluctuations in funding from the international donor community. As a result, we are working on submitting another 3-year extension request to the Secretariat of the Treaty. The funding gap as at September 2024 and completion of mine clearance in Zimbabwe by 2028 was $23.79 million. On its part, the government of Zimbabwe has set aside an amount of $2 million towards the National Mine Clearance Unit, which requires, as I have indicated, $23.17 million to complete this exercise. It is our fervent hope that deliberations during this workshop will help unlock funding for mine action in Zimbabwe, as completion of mine clearance is hinged on sustained funding from government and current new donors. Completion of mine clearance in Zimbabwe will not only help enhance safety and security in affected communities, but will also go a long way in unlocking sustainable socio-economic development. This is in tandem with Zimbabwe's national development agenda, which seeks to uplift the lives of the vulnerable who are affected most by the continued presence of landmines in their communities. It also resonates well with the Second Republic's vision under the astute leadership of His Excellency the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and the Commander-in-Chief of the Zimbabwe Defense Forces, Comrade Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, of an empowered and prosperous upper middle income society by 2030 that leaves no one and no place behind. Plans are afoot to come up with appropriate interventions for the post-completion period, including a demobilization strategy for deminers and maintenance of a capacity to handle residual mine contamination. The Zimbabwe National Mine Clearance Unit will remain in place to handle cases of residual contamination. Mine victim assistance is expected to take center stage as we march towards the tail end of mine clearance. The Ministry of Defense will support the Geneva Center for International Humanitarian Demining and other partners in crafting the Zimbabwe Mine Action Strategy that guided our activities for the period 2018 to 2025. A new strategic document that speaks to the current realities on the ground, taking into account lessons learned from our experiences, is now required. The strategy is key in guiding our operations and will help us to identify stakeholders and priority areas. We look forward to the usual support from partners and stakeholders in coming up with the new mine action strategy. It is our fervent hope that this meeting will deliberate on a realistic, clear roadmap which will have a robust and indeed succinct implementable policies and also strategies. Another equally important matter is the preparation and submission of our request for an extension of mine clearance deadline to the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Secretariat. Regrettably, this will be our 6th request for an extension following our accession to the treaty in 1999. I am pleased to note that work in this regard has already commenced, and given the usual support from stakeholders, I have no doubt that the request will be successful. Ladies and gentlemen, the government of Zimbabwe will not only continue to avail resources to the National Mine Action Program, but will also continue to mainstream mine action in its programming. Government acknowledges that comprehensive implementation of the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Treaty requires a multi-sectoral and a whole-of-government approach. The government of Zimbabwe will also continue to support calls for the universalization of the Anti-Personnel Mine Ban Treaty and to share experiences with other state parties. At this juncture, let me take this opportunity to extend my profound appreciation to the donor community for continuing to support mine action in Zimbabwe. We owe it to them for the huge strides that have been registered so far towards the finalization of mine clearance. I would also like to thank the Implementation Support Unit and the European Union for supporting the hosting of this event. Our deliberations are going to reveal the progress and the challenges faced so far in mine action in Zimbabwe, as well as inform on the mitigation measures that are necessary to overcome those challenges. As I conclude, I once again welcome you all to Zimbabwe and to the Sunshine City of Harare in particular. I thank you all for being part of this important engagement, and I look forward to fruitful deliberations. I thank you.